Welcome to the Woodbury Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Please rise for the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is the Woodbury Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. We meet the second Wednesday of every month. Our next meeting will be in July 10th. Our board we have a full board this evening. To your far right, we have Mr. Joseph DiVenuto, Mr. Gary Kestenbaum, Mr. Kevin Abrams, Mr. Craig Brady. To your far left, we have our counsel, Mr. Rob Dickover, our recording secretary, Jessica McLennan, and I'm Karen Ungerer. Welcome to our meeting this evening. We have no executive session this evening. Has everyone read the minutes from last month?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to accept as written?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
New business? None. Actions on decisions? None. Public hearings. There's been some slight changes to the agenda. Shops of Woodbury will be postponed until next month. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to this application? Okay, so Shops at Woodbury will be next month. The order this evening will be...
Do you need a motion for that? To bind it over to the next one?
I do. Do I have a motion for that? Thank you, Gary.
I will make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so Shops at Woodbury will be held over until next month. The order will be, first on the agenda will be Aldi's, second will be Iron Chef, and then it will be Pulver, Osweiler, and Falkowitz in that order. So basically, we're just taking Iron Chef and moving it after Aldi's. Everything else will remain the same. Okay, so we have a public hearing for Aldi Incorporated, public hearing for an area variance to permit wall signage having 5 colors, corporate logo, whereas pursuant to section 310-30D1E, a maximum of 4 colors is permitted. Furthermore, the applicant proposes 2 wall signs, whereas pursuant to section 310-30K signage table, only 1 wall sign is permitted. Said property is located in the IB zoning district within Woodbury Center at 43 Center Drive in Central Valley and is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 225, Block 2, Lot 1.12. I see the applicant is present this evening. So you first applied in April. Yes. However, it was a noticing error, so we postponed that till May. And then we received a letter from the Hampton Inn Council, which we had to consider. It had a planning board attachment with it, which said that the signs at Woodbury Center had to have 5-foot-high letters for the 5 principal stores, 4-foot-high letters for the other stores, and 3-foot-high letters for the smallest stores on the western side, most side of the project. Since this last meeting, we have 2 things. We have one, the planning board, ARB, has approved the signage with the conditions, of course, that it meet the code or variance requirements or whatever. And what they said, the planning board, was the applicant shall submit a sign application to the building department to confirm the sign details, including area, mounting quantity, and other features to satisfy the village code, the standard building department practice, and sign requirements for this center. And the second thing we have is an interpretation from Mr. Gary Thomasberger, which says that the current Planning Board ARB decision to approve it supersedes the original 2001 ARB resolution, I guess it is. So basically what we have this evening are 2 criteria that we need to address. One is the 5 colors, and the other is the 2 signs, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I don't know that we need to go through the whole thing. I mean, what you plan to do is put, you are on a corner, so you plan to put one facing 32 and one, on the southernmost side, the southwest part of the building. It's less than 10% of the total wall area. It does have 5 colors. but it is a harmonious, this is my opinion now, harmonious appearing sign. Does the board have any comments or questions before we?
I'm good.
I have one quick question. The actual size of the letters on the 12 foot, I believe it is, pylon signs.
No, we're not doing pylon signs, we're doing,
I'm sorry, on the corner of the building, I'm calling it a pylon, it's not. So yes, that sign, size of the letters.
if you look at the scale.
We don't have the actual measurements per se. Fortunately, if we're talking 12 feet here.
Right. So it looks to me like it's 3.5 feet.
I was gonna say, yeah, probably about 3
Tops,
feet.
yeah.
Tops.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
Anything else from the board? Anything else from the applicant that you care to add or whatever before I open this up to the public?
No.
All righty, thank you so much. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this application? Yes, sir. Please go to the podium, give us your name.
Attorney for Hampton.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Bazidlo. I'm the attorney for outside counsel for the Hampton Inn. I was here last month. I won't go through the details of the letter that I submitted last month, but I don't believe the information you received really changes the position we had in there. I was unaware of the opinion from from the building inspector. At that point, I saw it over in the pile as I came in this morning. I would respectfully disagree with that. I think that the resolution that the planning board passed back in April has two specific statements in it that I think contradicts his opinion. I realize it's Gary's opinion at this point in time. But in particular, that resolution from the planning board does say, special condition number 1 says that all conditions of prior approvals in connection with this property shall continue to be in full force and effect. The resolution does not supersede or otherwise modify such prior approvals and conditions except as specifically set forth in this resolution. And I realize that one of the things the planning board decided on was the ARB for the project, but there is again, one of the specific conditions in here, number 8, where it talks about that the resolution of approval does not authorize any sign to be erected. So I would be of the opinion, and I would advise the board here that I believe those restrictions about the size of the sign, as well as the color of the sign having to match the other colors in the center, as it was approved back in, I believe it was 2001. I'm not sure about that, but that those still apply, and those were site plan conditions. They weren't architectural review board conditions. They were site plan conditions, and those have not been modified by this latest resolution from the planning board. There were other points in my letter that I provided the board last month to consider beyond this restriction from the previous site plan approval. Those had to do with the fact it would be the only sign here with 5 colors, not only in this shopping center, but I think also perhaps in the town itself. And the second thing is that there are 2 signs proposed by the applicant here. Though the Kohl's building, of which I think they're taking over about half of that building, had 2 signs. This is a 10 indoor sized store here that's only half the size as Kohl's. So I don't know whether the fact of having the 2 signs is really justified for this applicant. So.
Sir, can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
I'm glad you brought it up, because I myself was concerned as to whether this would be exceptional in that shopping center, that there were no other corner or standalone buildings in Woodbury Center or in Woodbury. So I went to Harriman Business Park as well to take a look at the pad sites in Woodbury from a standpoint of consistency. And I found 6 buildings that have signs on up to 4 signs. So this is, I must say that this is not inconsistent with other shopping center approvals and appurtenances in the town of Woodbury, in the village of Woodbury.
Okay. I respect your opinion about that.
I didn't know, so I looked.
Okay, I respect your opinion about that, but again, I think the applicant here is basing their proposal for 2 signs on the fact that the Coles building had 2 signs on it. They're only, I'm not sure about the exact size, but I believe they're only about half the size of the Coles building. And I don't know whether that still justifies the fact of having 2 signs.
If I may say also, as an example, Talbot's is a small building, would you agree? Talbot's is a corner building in that center, and they're small. They're smaller than either Aldi or Coles, and they have 2 signs.
Right. And the Talbot, excuse me for interrupting,
No, please.
but the Talbot sign is also one color, white, white letters, and it matches.
I don't disagree with that, but my point is, in terms of signs, there are 2 signs, and at Uno's, there are 4 signs, so I'm just saying.
All right, well, those are the points I want to make to the board. I hope you'll take them under consideration, and we'll, as with the applicant, we'll wait your decision, so, okay, thank you.
No, I can see that. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this application? All righty.
I'd like to make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, so the public hearing is closed. At the end of this meeting, we will deliberate. You're welcome to stay, or you can call the building department tomorrow to find out exactly what the decision was. All righty? Thank you.
Okay, that's that one.
Karen shares well.
Iron Chef. Next public hearing will be for what's on your agenda as letter E, which is Iron Chef, Route 32 Property LLC, Iron Chef, formerly Gasho. Public hearing for an area variance to permit an existing wall sign of 64.89 square feet to remain, whereas pursuant to Section 310-30K signage table of the Village Code, a maximum of 20 square foot is permitted. Said property is located in the CR zoning district at 365 Route 32 in Central Valley and is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 218, Block 1, Lot 19. The applicant is present. Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Stephen Burns. I represent the applicant. I'm the applicant's engineer. The applicant over there is
Oh, okay.
David.
That's fine. Okay, please continue. I'm sorry. A little technical difficulty.
In the package that the applicant provided, the applicant has a sign on the gable end of the existing building that was the Gasho house for the Iron Chef. There's a picture of the sign.
Page 3.
There you go. Yes. So the sign kind of fits up in the gable end of the existing building there, and it makes it visible from the entry road as you come into the parcel. If the way that the triangular shape doesn't exactly fit into the way that the ordinance is written to measure the square footage of the sign. The sign is the total height by the maximum width, which makes it a
I imagine because it's a triangle and you have windows on the bottom. Are those windows?
There's windows behind it.
Right,
actually,
and so you couldn't mount it flush onto the
Yes,
building,
it's
which is why it's on that triangular.
Yes, and there's no
And-
background to it.
right,
it's,
right.
It's actually a lot smaller of a footprint then really.
A sign that would be, right.
Because the sign doesn't look that big.
It's not. When you actually figure out the area of the sign really isn't that big. Even if when I took the two apart and made a rectangle for the type, for the Iron Chef and the circle, I was at about 26 or so square
Yeah, I
feet.
saw that on your answer.
You know, so our sign just doesn't really conform with the way that the area is written out in the code.
So the plywood in question is basically because of the style of the building.
No, it's the style of the
The style of
sign.
the sign,
Right, and it had to be fit up there flush.
yes.
I have a question. It's illuminated, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so looking at the letters, they're outlined in white, or it looks like white on, on the sign.
yes.
Now, when it's illuminated, will it just be that outline, or is the inside of it also illuminated?
When they're lit up, do you see the black, or is it just the outside white that lights up? Just the outside,
And what about the circle? Is that also illuminated?
just the white parts of the circle.
Just the white parts of the circle?
So the white is gonna be translucent, the black, and I believe the red are probably gonna be, but the black is gonna be blackened out on the.
So basically, it's just like the outline of each letter? Gotcha. What are the hours of operation for the Iron Chef?
What are your hours of operation?
11:30 to 10,
11:30 to 10?
Okay.
like 3 to 4:30.
That's what we do.
Couldn't hear. Could you speak into the mic?
He just stated that that they were gonna close between lunch.
Oh, okay.
All right.
A question, will the signs be turned off at
That
the
was-
end of the night?
I was going to make that, you did.
So when you close, they're off?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I'm good.
Just one quick one.
Sure, go ahead, Joe.
Was there signage there for Gasho? I honestly can't remember. In that same basic spot?
I thought so. I'm not sure.
There wasn't a sign there.
No?
So they just had the signage down by the road, basically like you have it?
Yeah.
I've seen that many times. All right. On the illumination, how noticeable would that be from the road for people driving at night, let's say?
On Route 32, I'm not sure that it's gonna be very noticeable at all, except for when you're right lined up with the entry drive. I think that the vegetation on the north side is the vegetation and the elevation change in there is gonna block it out, and it kind of sits in a valley, so same thing from the other direction. And you're coming up on the back of the building from that side, if you're
From going northbound?
Yes.
Well, going north, it's difficult to see, but going south, I could see it now, and one of my concerns is when the leaves come off the trees, you're going to see that. And there's a house, if you go up that road, if you pass the driveway for Gasho, keep going, there's a house on the right, and then further down, there's another house, and it faces those two homes. So how bright is this illumination? Like, if you're going to give me watts and stuff, I don't understand. Can you? Is it like a floodlight, or is it,
It's an LED internal light, so I would imagine it's more of a glow than a bright light.
Okay.
I haven't personally seen it lit up.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions from the board? Joe?
Just a quick follow-up on that. You folks have to still go to the planning board on this, because there's a certain illumination that's allowed or not allowed, which they generally do at the planning board. So I'm just curious, is it you're coming to us on a sign and you're done? And it goes perhaps to the building department?
We just came here because at the recommendation of the building department, so we did not have any plan to go to the planning board.
I would just check with the code enforcement officer, with Gary Thomasberger, and just ask him about how much light you're allowed on that. Other than that, I guess that would be fine.
Okay. I'd be willing to bet that it's not gonna produce very much light at all when you go to look at the photo diagrams and everything of it.
I'm obligated to ask.
Understand, and it's understandable.
Board members, anything? Applicant, do you have anything to add before I open it up to the public?
Anything that? I think we're all set.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who would like
They
to?
might have a question. The public might have something for
That's what I'm doing, opening it up to the public.
Mike's got a red light on. I don't know if that's picking up
Oh,
what they're saying.
yeah.
Well,
Oh, it's not?
But if the audience doesn't have anything, I'd like to,
Well, I didn't ask, I mean, I stopped. Anyone from the public wish to speak to this application? Okay, Kevin, what did you want to say?
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Do I, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the public hearing for this is closed. We will deliberate at the end of this meeting. You're welcome to stay, or you can call the building department in the morning for the decision. Thank you very much.
Who's next? We are really buzzing tonight.
All right.
You know, Karen, why don't we try to stick to just anything new for Boulder instead of going through the whole. I mean, we do have that traffic report for the accidents.
Next on the agenda is the Pulver Rushmore Estate Winery, continuation of public hearing for an area variance to permit the proposed use of a farm winery. Whereas pursuant to Section 310-39.1B, winery access must be to New York State Route 32, and applicant proposes access through Quaker Road, a village road, and Ice House Road, a private road. Said property is located in the R1A zoning district at 14 Castleton Drive in Highland Mills, and is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 202, Block 1, Lot 70 and 79.
Karen, was that document you just read amended to include Evans?
No. It's not. All right, so I'm going to just, hi, Mr. Myro.
Good evening.
We meet again. Just to recap this, last month, we had a public hearing. We had quite a few people from the public speak. Several, most spoke in favor, some spoke against. We had businesses. We had the Orange County Land Trust, the Orange County Partnership in favor of it. There were some neighbors against the road, not necessarily the winery. We are here basically for the road. This is not a hearing to decide if there should be a winery. This is a hearing to determine whether we will allow access through this private road, which does not have direct access to Route 32. We are, since the last meeting, in receipt of a DOT accident report. We did not receive anything from Woodbury Police. We also have a letter of support from Mr. David Levinson. I think that covers what I wanted to say at this point. Do you have anything to add about this road?
J. Myro, Bluestein, Shapiro, Rich, and Barone for the applicant. I'm here with the applicant Seth Pulver, our project engineer Larry Toro, and our traffic engineer Mike Galanti. Since we were here last time, we did receive the accident data from the state. Mike prepared a narrative regarding safety on that. We also prepared a more detailed analysis of traffic impacts for other permitted uses that are allowed in the zoning district. So Mike can address both of those. I think those were the two main things that we were concerned about, that the board was concerned about. So unless you have questions, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Looks like Mike's on.
Good evening, Mike Galante, Clark Associates. As mentioned, there were two letters I prepared, both dated May 23rd. One is the accident data from New York State Department of Transportation. It summarizes accident data along Route 32, including Evans Drive, Quaker Road, for a 3-year period, which is a standard that we would ask for from any agency. And essentially shows that there were no accidents at Evans. There were 2 accidents along that stretch between Quaker and Evans Drive. One was a sideswipe, one was hard-hitting a fixed object, and there was nothing at Quaker Road itself. And that's what was pretty much summarized in that letter. In my mind, that doesn't show any accident or safety concerns that are showing up on the road conditions along Route 32. And that's something that you would ask for, and we would typically have in the traffic report. It just took a long time to get the data, so I apologize. It wasn't in the original report itself, or even the updated traffic report. That's the information that you have, and that summarized doesn't show any accident patterns, certainly doesn't show any high accident locations along Route 32 at Quaker or Evans, which are 2 key intersections that we've been discussing for a while now. Second letter was in reference to other permitted uses on the property itself, and I prepared a table, actually table 1 and table 2 put together just for comparison purposes. I'm not going to run through all the numbers itself, but the top is a school, various schools. Everyone is at 250 students, and I used elementary school, middle school, a junior high school, a private school, and a private school pretty much K through 12, so different variations. And then the bottom line is the nursery, and keep in mind this is a weekday condition for the moment. The school, of course, would generate traffic in the morning arrival, and then dismissal or departure in the afternoon itself. A winery, let's assume it's open on Friday afternoon during the afternoon peak period. A school of any type certainly generates more traffic. I'll just look at the afternoon for the moment. Anywhere from 85 to 145, 155 trips for a school of everyone's 250 students, just different types of schools. So it certainly generates a lot more traffic than the winery has proposed. And in all fairness, the winery is the Friday afternoon peak, which would be likely later than a school dismissal. So not exactly the same 1 hour, but the comparison is a weekday condition. A school of any type will certainly generate traffic 5 days a week, typically 180 days a year, and may have summer school or something else, but that's the comparison. The bottom table, which is table 2 from the same letter, is a nursery or garden center. And by the way, these trip generation rates that were used to estimate traffic is from the ITE handbook, just for comparison purposes. Table 2 is a nursery or garden center, and out of 50 acres, we use 40 acres, and that generates a significant amount of traffic. Yes, it's seasonal. You wouldn't have this traffic in the wintertime. But obviously the busiest day for a nursery would be the weekend. In this case, it's Saturday, and a substantial amount of traffic. It estimates 900 trips, and I would assume that's on a spring Saturday in perfect weather. But during the week, even in the afternoon, it generates a couple of hundred trips onto area roads. So generally speaking, any other committed land use that doesn't require the access directly to Route 32 can generate a substantial amount of traffic and would have likely more impacts. And that was really the purpose of to give you that comparison. And that's it as far as new information for you, and we can certainly discuss it now or later. Okay?
All right, thank you so much.
May I?
Joe, go ahead.
I have a couple questions. On page 2 of the April 23rd, 2019 report from you folks, Clark Associates, it speaks to intersection improvements are not needed to accommodate the additional traffic. And I assume that meant additional traffic would be delays or congestion, right?
It's certainly based on the first step would be delays and congestion based on traffic volumes, added site traffic in this case to a particular intersection. And the results of the analyses didn't show any substantial increase in delay that would require some type of mitigation. these intersections are essentially stop sign control. The next step is turning lanes or signalization would not meet the requirements for a traffic signal. So that's our reference.
Did you folks do anything with an angle of intersection on that? Because some of the sight distances are very poor, especially off of Evans Drive.
Okay, I mean, we did look at that, and I quite honestly think these sight lines are okay. There's a significant clearing coming out of Evans, certainly looking to the north or west, depending how you look at it.
Well, if you're headed northbound, cars can come on you pretty quickly there.
They do, but the state has taken the trouble to clear out a significant amount of vegetation on that curve. And the speeds on Route 32, they're probably higher than the posted speed limit.
Yeah, I would imagine they're a whole lot higher,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is, when I was checking it out, car come sliding up alongside of me when it was dead clear when 4 cars had passed. So I'd say that delays and congestion are fine, but sometimes I don't feel that safety is a consideration. I mean, there's a very dark joke that when enough people are killed or injured at an intersection, DOT puts in a traffic light. So, you know.
Not that quickly these days.
Yeah, I'm afraid of that because of the money, but I'm just saying.
I think there is adequate sight distance there. I've been to the intersection, obviously, multiple times. It certainly doesn't show any accident history to match that concern.
Yes,
but it's something we did look at.
All right, which
Yes.
brings me to my next point. You gave us the build, no build figures, and just for the sake of discussion, for a Friday night, let's say it's 44 now, presently, Quaker and Ice House and so forth. And if you include the 41 that you projected that the winery would create,
Traffic
that would make
generated.
it 85, yes?
In round numbers, yes.
All right?
Yes. But not all at one intersection. In fact, the site traffic is split depending on which direction they're traveling on Route 32. So not all 40 trips will go to Quaker Road, for example.
Well, I'm just saying that
Okay.
the whole big picture is like an 85.
Yes.
For the totality, and that would include the Saturdays and Sunday figures as well, whatever exists there now, plus
Some
whatever
site
is
traffic,
projected,
yes.
both the conservative and the higher
We're
end.
very conservative, but yes, yes.
All right, if I can stay with you here.
Sure.
No, that's not for you. It's more for Jay. Oh, yeah, on the, Part 1 of the EIS, it says, for 8A, will the proposed action result in substantial increase in traffic above present levels? And whomever did this checked no. So I'd like to, I mean, if it goes from 44 to 85, that seems like it's double. You know, and then
The
correspondingly Saturday, I know they don't all arrive at the same time, but it is going to put a greater amount of traffic there.
The evaluation of what is an impact to a road is not, if the traffic is doubled, if you have one car and you add one car, it's 2 trips. That's not a significant impact. So we measure that impact and make that decision on which box is checked off, on what is the impact of that traffic on a particular intersection, in this case, multiple intersections. And the results of the analyses, levels of service, measured delay, and so on, don't show any significant impact at all. None of the levels of service change.
Define
Increase in
impact
delay.
for me, please.
Impact is adding traffic, and what is the impact of that traffic, meaning what is the effect of that traffic on a particular intersection or road. In each case, we looked at multiple intersections, different time periods, and we look at things through levels of service, ABC and so on, which I'm sure you've heard, certainly from me, but others before. The results of the analyses don't change levels of service, and in each case, levels of service are C or better. And
We're back to delays and congestion right here.
well, delay is a measurement of the impact of, if it's operating with a 5-second delay today, and with site traffic, it's an 8-second delay.
Well, level A would be no problem, level C would be sort of moving in that direction.
Levels A, B, and C C is average delay. It's still a very acceptable condition, including D. In traffic engineering, we have E, level service E, which is you bring it down to more congestion and more delay. That's when you start talking about significant impacts. But we're still staying in the level of service A through C, and we measured it by movement at each intersection. and none of them rose or reduced to the level of there's a concern from a traffic flow, traffic congestion, or in my mind, safety of a particular intersection. And that's why we didn't recommend any modifications to traffic control, pavement markings, or added lanes or anything like that.
All right,
So it was multiple steps.
all right, thank you. Just let me check before. In the one report that you, of 23rd May, the accident experience, it just stated one reported accident at intersection of Route 32 and what? I know you were talking two.
Hazel.
Oh, so
Yeah, it's the offset T.
back by the Methodist Church event.
Yeah, yeah, I realized that in the text when I looked at it tonight. It's Hazel.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I won't go far.
Any other questions from the board? Does the applicant have anything to add at this time?
Are you going to open it? I'll reserve based on what
Okay.
public comment we
Okay.
made.
Public.
All right.
Joe has a question.
Oh, okay.
Just let me change my. I did ask about workers and so forth as additional cars, which we were more or less, as I assumed, we were talking about customers coming when we're talking about 41 additional cars. I don't remember getting an answer about how many workers and so forth. Do you remember me asking that question last time, Jay?
Not to the extent that I remember saying I would get you some data.
Is it possible? Or up
So
to?
you wanted number of workers coming in on a daily basis?
Yes, just a rough sort of
Do you
thing,
want us-
because
at
like
what-
you have
At what
laborers.
stage? Because we're,
I'm not talking about building as much as what would be there on a daily basis once it's up and running, or if it's up and running, whatever way you want to look at it.
I don't know if you have done an analysis tonight.
To some extent. Currently, I have 2 full-time employees maintaining the property and 4 part-time employees. I imagine if this project gets approved and everything gets built, and I'm actually running the winery with a vineyard, I'll need at least twice as many people, both full and part-time.
So 4 full-time and 8 part-time?
Yes, I would say that's a good estimate.
And that would include secretaries and bookkeeper, whatever it might take.
That's all made, yeah.
All right, while you're there, Seth, and Mr. Myro, for sure, that's going to be paved as it stands right now, if you were to get permission to do this, or is the gravel still part of it? Because there was concern about that
I think we were trying to keep it gravel so that we had less impervious surfaces.
because of the runoff.
Larry, you want to speak to that?
Excuse me, Larry Toro, Civil Tech. The plan that's presently before you is for a 24-foot wide macadam roadway. The roadway in a hard surface. We took out the gravel.
So from all the way up Ice House from Quaker to
Right.
whatever would be
Right, 'cause
paved.
The shoulders, which we had spoke about, the shoulders of gravel now would have to be cleaned up, some patches in the roadway when we widen it, and at the bottom of the hill, we're gonna put in some drainage as requested by the highway superintendent.
Okay. All right, thank you. I think that'll do it.
Any other questions from the board? Do you have a question? Do you want to speak? Mr. Collins, would you like to speak, please? Please give your name to the board. Thank you.
I'm assuming this is a live mic. For the record, my name is John Collins, and we're with the firm of Mesa Consulting, and we are consultants to the village of Woodbury on traffic issues, primarily to the planning board. The way I look at this application, we have a series of numbers and levels of service, et cetera. And given the nature of the existing volumes as well as the anticipated volumes due to the winery and ancillary facilities, the level of service doesn't really come up to be a problem because of the current volume of traffic. So the way I look at this is we're not looking at it from a operational standpoint, level of service standpoint, but rather a safety standpoint. The issue is relatively simple in my mind. If the applicant had a direct access to 32, they would be required as part of the state highway work permit to provide adequate sight lines at that driveway to meet the existing volume, to meet the existing speed limits on 32. So I think it would be a responsibility of the applicant to at least provide a sight distance that is comparable to what would be required if they had a direct access or driveway to 32 at some point along the town road frontage, especially as it comes out to 32. So basically, some improvements would have to be made if they wanted to use that road to provide sight distance, especially looking to the left, coming out onto 32 at the existing intersection.
Is that just Quaker or Quaker and
Well,
Evans?
I would primarily, I think most of the volume is going to come from the south, so therefore, it's going to be left turn in and a right turn out, and I'm concerned about the right turn out coming out, not being able to see southbound traffic on 32. I think as long as you provide one access point, since there would only be one driveway to the site if they had direct access to 32, I think if they would improve it and direct people their enter or exit to the south, I think that would be reasonable. So I'm not looking at both locations, just the one location. Or, as we discussed last time, an alternate means of access to the site.
John, if I may, if there's a road there, they're going to use it, and even if it's not as much from the northbound situation on Evans, I'd like to have some information on that as well, because it's there. If people get off there, they're going to try to go back that way to go home.
If they do, but they could also, if I improve the site distance, it's much easier to make the left turn out of the southerly section if I have a reasonable sight distances than if I try to go out the north side. Just my opinion. And I'm more concerned if you keep on, if you're a resident on the road, you're a repeat customer, so to say, so you know what to watch out for. If you're a visitor to the winery on an occasion, that's what more of my concern. I think that basically summarized my conclusion. It's more of a sight distance.
John, you used the word alternative access. What did you mean by that?
Well, there was some discussion. I was at the last planning board meeting, but my associate told me there was some discussion about going out through Brigadoon, and that would be out the existing town roads to the, would it be to the west?
Do you have
I'm not recommending access one way or the other. I'm just saying what would have to be done.
Did you review any literature, numbers, documents regarding that alternative, or you just?
No, I'm just making a statement that was some alternate means of access.
So you don't have opinions on that because you don't have documentation?
I have not studied anything numbers-wise with respect to that. Although the intersection of Dunneberg Road and the intersection was considered as part of the analysis, but not the internal roadways where the other connection would occur.
Mr. Myra?
Mr. Collins, Jay Myra.
Yes.
Is the main, I'm not quite sure I understood, is the main concern you were talking about Quaker at 32?
Quaker at 32.
Okay, and is there a way to realign? I mean, that road's at an angle. If we squared that off.
It would be fine. Yeah, that would make a significant improvement.
Okay. I think the board hasn't seen this, but.
Just looking at it, that would be a reasonable alternative, because what I'm seeing is Quaker is taken and turned perpendicular to 32. Therefore, what would happen is you'd be coming into 32 at a T intersection as opposed to an angle. Clearing the shrubbery, you'll get a much better sight distance.
Do you mind if we we have that on a board? Can I put this up?
You
there
can
so
be,
can see
but I
what
would
we're
have your
talking about?
consultant discuss it, but
This
that's,
wasn't submitted, it came up after Mr. Collins had spoken to Mr. Galante, so we'd have to submit it, but it's something the board can look at now. It's my understanding Mr. Collins and Mr. Galante spoke, and there was a suggestion that this could be cleaned up if we brought this out perpendicular. So this is all either village or state right of way. It's not private property. There is room for us to do that improvement. We'd be willing to do it, and it may be a significant benefit. I think Mr. Collins was speaking to that.
and what would happen is there would be a requirement that the applicant, if the town were willing to entertain it, to apply to the DOT on the town's behalf to modify that intersection as it comes into 32. But that would be, and the state would check the site distance to make sure it's in conformance with current standards by the state.
So this is an off-site improvement. The client would voluntarily agree to take that on, make it part of a condition of an approval. We would have Mike analyze it for site distance
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and feasibility in terms of anything else, since I'm not an engineer, so certainly feasibility, but we think that this is something that could really clean up that intersection regardless, but it would square things off here and certainly make access better.
Anyone else from the board? Anyone else? Applicant? Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Well, before you leave, Mr.
Oh.
Collins, a question on this. So effectively, the town would need to, or the village would need to approve it.
The village would have to be a co-applicant to the DOT.
And the
Since it
DOT
involves a relocation of a village road onto a state highway.
Okay. Any complications you'd see to that, or is it fairly straightforward?
Whenever you deal with the New York State Department of Transportation, there are always complications, so.
Thank you for confirming my
I
suspicion.
refuse to answer on the grounds it may get me in trouble.
I'm not judging, I'm just saying.
Thank you, sir. Does the applicant have anything to add, Mr.?
Thank you. The one thing I just wanted to add that nobody addressed, besides all the reconfiguration of the intersection, is a few well-placed signs would help people who are not from the area know exactly where to turn and how much of a distance they had to make that turn. So in addition to all of this, I'm hoping that I'll have some good signage to lead people right in.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Morrow, anything at this point, or you want to wait until?
Yeah, I'll wait till the public.
Okay. I'd like to open it up to the public. Please speak to the road. We're not considering the winery. We already know Mr. Pulver's a great guy. That was established at the last meeting. So if anybody has anything that they would like to address about the road. Yes, sir. First row. Yes, sir.
Well, good evening. My name is Dave Clark, and
Excuse me, Mr. Clark, where are you from?
I used to live in this town right over here until I was, this is my property, as you all know.
Huh?
This road access here actually makes a lot of sense, that fixing this area right here, because whether or not there's car traffic going up to this Ice House Road, it's always a hindrance. Down back here on Evans, there's also a problem there. And it doesn't matter if there's 1 or 5 cars, even, if you know how to drive and you go perpendicular to 32, you're still gonna have an issue. So that definitely needs to be addressed. But having the Ice House Road be an access to it, I live here, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a great idea. It just needs, I like this a lot better, even if there was no winery up there. And if there's gonna be other projects that could possibly be approved, there would be a lot more traffic other than the winery. As far as this area is concerned, again, this is my only interpretation is I live here, I drive every single day on this part of the road. Leaving 32 is not an issue. Leaving Quaker and going onto 32 going southbound is not really an issue. It's when you make the left. And then everybody goes the other way and goes to Evans. which is even worse because you got truck traffic coming up the hill from the quarry, or you got people coming down going north, and you can barely see them. And you're right, it just happens. I think that if this is going to be approved, which I think it should be, not just signs, but other preparations. People talked about having speed bumps, because it's not just the proposal for Ice House Road, it's everybody that drives on that road that goes faster than 30 miles an hour. And I walk up and down the street every day. It's a possibility. If it's any thoughts in your minds to put something else out there, more is better. Signs, maybe a speed bump on both ends, from Quaker down to Evans, just one on either end. And
Yeah, just a comment, speed bumps aren't permitted on public roads.
okay, they're not permitted. Wow,
So
that's
signage is cool.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Well, signage would be an added help. I'm not here for my own personal, but I'll have to look into that one. I've never heard that before, but thank you very much.
I just checked with the traffic consultant.
They are allowed on certain public roads, but it depends upon the speed, and it depends upon the distance of what, it's plus or minus.
Yeah, on a 30-mile-an-hour road, they're not permitted.
I doubt it.
I have them at Timber Ridge.
Well, doubting it and thinking about it
I
are
have
two
them.
different
Well, I
things,
have them.
because you are growing. This town is growing faster and furious, and there's a lot more truck traffic or car traffic on a one-lane road in and out. It's just a thought.
I don't disagree that town's growing, I don't disagree that traffic's growing, but, since I have a relatively short distance between Ice House Road and 32 in that stretch, especially with the turn, I don't see the speed along that stretch of road getting to a point that is, in fact, this will lower the speed because you won't have the tendency to do that quick right turn out.
Okay, well,
you
I'll
wanna
buy
get
that. I'll buy that for $1, sure. Other than that, this is a great idea. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Sure.
You said you own the property between Quaker and 32?
The blackened triangle.
You don't remember? No.
Okay, is it contiguous with Quaker and 32, or is there?
It's this whole spot here.
And everything in the middle?
And, well, yeah, that's me.
Okay, so my question is, would you give an easement
Sure,
to go to 32?
sure. It's unused property, and if it makes it easier for people to get in and out, whether or not it's approved for a winery, sure, by all means.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
Ice House Road extension.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't need a variance.
You're not talking about from here to here, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not saying no. I'm really not saying no. I'm joking. I mean, I implore Mr. Pulver from doing what he's doing. I do. I like it. I want this here. I want it more than other things that could possibly be here. So if there's some negotiations, not so that it doesn't disturb, well, you wouldn't disturb this. I mean, if you're talking about an easement coming from around here, going straight across, it's a very good possibility. I'm very open to working out with Mr. Pulver and the planning board and the building department. It's not off the table, but
Well, it wasn't a given.
no, it's a very good question. I like it.
Any other?
All right. Anything else, sir? All right, thank you. Anyone else in the first row? Oh, okay, thank you.
Russell Cohen, Brigadoon. I live in Highland Mills. It seems like this is a home run and we are on the right path here. I just wanted to say that it seems that it might just be a math equation. I have the privilege of working for the Rushmore Estate at its bed and breakfast, so I know the inner conversations that are going on, and if not a winery, something else. And if the numbers, if it's a math equation, that the numbers add up, that there'll be more traffic for some other project, and there'll be less cars coming in for the winery, I would say that the winery should be approved. And but it looks like what we're talking about already seems to be like we're on the way, and this looks like a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the first row? Second row?
For the record, Amanda Dana, Director of Tourism for Orange County, and I'd like to stick to the topic of the road. However, I just want to say as a blanket statement, I am very much in favor of this project. Seth Pulver came to our office, met with our economic development people, met with Cornell, and we all feel that this type of project is greatly needed in our diverse tourism economy. But for the record, seeing now that there's so many more suggestions and see how much more Mr. Pulver is willing to do to put the safety of our visitors first at hand, I highly suggest you move on with this public hearing and close this public hearing. This is a great project. He's clearly is a man that wants to stay here, have roots here. That property has never looked better than it does right now, and I'm really in favor of it, and I think we should close this public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the second row?
John Cookless, Ice House Road. I hear all good stuff about this traffic study, but I still haven't gotten an answer on this. Ice House Road is supposed to be closed, and I don't know. No one's giving me an answer on any of this.
I believe the only portion that's closed is from the Brigadoon side to the gate.
No, from the gate from Quaker to the gate is supposed to be closed up to where my property ends.
Do you have any documentation for that?
I submitted it to the board when this first started here.
I have documentation on other things, but nothing that said...
Planning board decided that whenever they had the subdivision in Brigadoon and eliminated a cul-de-sac up on top, that they subdivided 2 lots that Mr. Pulver owns, that the Ice House Road was supposed to remain closed.
What I read was that it was supposed to remain, it would remain private, and that it couldn't be used for the road itself could not be used for building Brigadoon, transporting trucks and whatever to build in Brigadoon.
That's your interpretation, or the planning board's interpretation?
That's what it said, I believe.
Well, why does it say it's permanently closed, Ice House Road?
I don't have any. Do you have anything that says Ice House Road is permanently closed?
I don't.
Did you get anything?
I think part of the problem is that what you're reading is the minutes.
Right.
The minutes are one thing. The resolution is something else.
Okay.
So if that didn't get into this...
It may have been suggested, but perhaps it never came to fruition.
Well,
so you're looking to the July 2016?
I'm curious because
2003?
At the time,
because I read the resolution.
Supervisor Conroy puts a article in the newspaper saying that Ice House Road will remain a private thoroughfare. So if the town supervisor says that the road's private.
Private doesn't mean closed, though. It just means used by the owners or the people who live there, I believe. Is that true?
So that's where we're running into the trouble, because whatever's in the minutes is not showing up in the resolution. So somehow when the resolution got drawn up, things were changed and it was omitted.
Because you did some
Because I read the resolutions and it's not there.
Okay.
Could find nothing.
I think it's fair to say that there was extensive research done looking for something stating that Ice House Road, for example, I'm looking at July 16th, 2003's minutes. Chairman Queenan, and I'm quoting, Chairman Queenan asked about the disposition of Ice House Road. He recalled at one time that Ice House Road was to be closed and deeded to the residents at the end of it. Mr. Brodsky said he did not see any problem with this arrangement. That's the minutes, right? The problem is that in the resolution, it states essentially Ice House Road will remain a private road and is entirely too narrow to construct a road to the specifications of the town of Woodbury. So it never was closed and deeded to the residents. Whether it should have been, that's something we can't address, right? It is what it is.
Okay.
You could get a copy of the resolution
No.
Unfortunately, we've researched this whole thing.
And
Your battery's dead.
The
The resolution from 97 as well states, Ice House Road will remain a private road, is entirely too narrow to construct a road to the specifications of the town of Woodbury. Thus, unless there was some way for the applicant to convey a lot which had frontage on an existing town or county road, or, in the alternative, was going to improve Ice House Road to town specifications, which is an impossibility, there are no other means by which the applicant can pursue other than the requested area variance. So certainly the expectation at the time, the language suggests that the expectation at the time was that Ice House Road would not be a viable thoroughfare, but there is no language in the decision that says it will not be or it may not be. So we saw that. We saw what you were referring to.
So,
Okay.
you know, I'm
Thank you, sir. Anyone in the third row? Oh, I'm sorry, second row. Go ahead.
My name is Liza Rodriguez. I'm also a resident at Ice House Road.
Could you speak a little closer to the mic so we can hear you?
Better?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. I'm also a resident at Ice House Road. I'm talking about the road and the winery. I'm not for it. I'm not against it. We're going to talk about Ice House Road. I have 3 children. They're all in school, and they walk Ice House Road frequently. So we have to worry about more traffic now, which is Mr. Pulver's workers that are going to go to the winery constantly. They like to ride their bikes. We're going to have to worry about wedding parties. We're going to have to worry about concerts, and people driving impaired, because it's a winery. People are going to drink. Some of them don't use their best judgment, and they're going to drink and drive. Then that road is very narrow right now. I worried about the safety of my family. I walk my dog on the road as well. I want to know what he's going to do as a safety measure so my children can walk up and down the road. We also have hikers that walk on the road. People drive their ATVs on the road as well. I feel whatever you do right here, it's not going to make a difference. This is a 55-mile-an-hour. Trucks drive through here 55 miles an hour, okay? If you're impaired and you go to make a left and you don't see that truck right away coming around that bend, there's going to be an accident. And basically that's it. I mean, I wish him all the best on his winery, but I'm very concerned about our road, the road that we've lived on, the road that we've tried to maintain. I have a big drainage issue with the gravel road right now. All the gravel goes into my driveway every time it rains. There's always an issue on that road. So, and we all work on that road. We work different hours of the day. How is the construction going to affect us coming in and out of our own road? How is the traffic going to go on our road when there's trucks blocking, because only one car can pass? And if there's a truck on the road, we cannot pass at all. So we have a little bit of concerns that I don't think Mr. Pulver has clarified for us at this time. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the third row? That's how many rows we have, right? Anybody else? Going once, twice. Mr. Myro, you have something to add?
The only thing I would add is that in regards to safety along Ice House Road, this matter is subject to site plan review. I'm not sure that necessarily the variance request is with respect to the safety of Ice House, but in the course of site plan review, we will, and in the course of the planning board doing their own secret review, we will certainly accommodate and address any safety concerns that are along Ice House. To the extent that if we can put a path along there, fine. If we can widen it to a certain spot and put gravel so there's a delineated place for kids to walk, we'll look at all that. That's absolutely not a concern on our part. And it will have to go through that entire process. That will be a planning board issue.
Beg your pardon, Jay. Would you have that much space to be able to put a pathway plus the road? It seems like that.
Well, there's some places where we may, there's some places where it may narrow, but to the extent we can propose anything, any kind of remediation, I'm not sure, school children, certainly in the morning, it's not going to be an issue because the winery's not open. School children, when they get out of school, probably is not a significantly high traffic time. So, but to the point that we can actually, through signage or whatever, we'll, speed bumps, whatever, we'll do whatever is reasonably necessary to address that issue with the planning board. Thank you. You're welcome.
Are we ready to finish secret?
Did you have anything, Mr. Belver?
Well, I was just going to add that since the process began, I think you guys know I have purchased 2 of the 6 houses that are on Ice House Road, and they are the 2 that were where Ice House Road was the thinnest, and now I am able to accommodate the cars as well as a footpath for pedestrians as well.
Will that footpath extend up to the end of what is currently paved, or?
It could. I'm not sure that Mr. Kuklis, the next house, would want that addition, work and clearing in front of his yard. I think he might prefer it to keep it the way it is, but I would be happy to accommodate them.
Do you need an easement for that?
No.
You have enough property to build
more than
24-foot wide plus pathways? Okay,
plenty.
thank you. Anything else from the board? Mr. Myra, did you have something?
Yeah, so this is brand new. You haven't seen this. Mr. Collins didn't see it. It was produced as a result. I'm assuming you may want us to analyze this as a possibility and also speak to this gentleman about another possibility. I'm assuming that if we came in here, we'd increase site distances, but if you want us to analyze this, we're going to have to bring in new data. So I'm assuming that would mean you'd leave the public hearing open.
What new data?
I think.
Unless you're comfortable with this.
I'm comfortable with this.
I think if there's anything between the applicant and Mr. Clark, that's between the applicant and Mr. Clark, and then.
That's fine.
We wouldn't be involved in that at this point anyway.
Well, would it result in an amended application?
Would it even need an application if he has access to 32?
I'm assuming my
it
guess
would
is,
not.
I'm assuming that if you want this.
No, we're talking.
I'm talking about
the
discussion-
easement from Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark, because
That's what we're talking about.
effectively, if you have that let's take a wild guess out here. You have that conversation, it results in an agreement. In effect, you have Ice House Road now connecting to 32.
Except crossing over Quaker.
It's still
But it still has,
Road
it's still
connecting
access to
32.
32.
If you would consider that as being directly fronting on, I'll be happy with that. I don't think, I would
Let's put it
be
this
happy
way.
to sign on to that interpretation.
The question would be, effectively, maybe it's not an easement, maybe he sells you a 24-foot wide path, at which point it's contiguous property and you have direct access. You can seek an easement if whatever you want to do, if you want to pursue that or not. We certainly would prefer this as opposed to the existing Quaker condition. I don't know that any other analysis or numbers would be required because the traffic's not going to change, right? The numbers aren't going to change, so.
I think for the record, the applicant should just submit sightline distances and what is required to obtain that site distance. It may need an easement from the adjacent property owner, and that could be worked out again with I heard the person tonight saying they would be gladly give an easement across the frontage for the site distance, and the extension of Ice House Road most likely should not be in the form of an easement because then it's not a.
Agreed.
It should be a public road because the town may elect to cul-de-sac or close both ends of the existing roadway to improve or get rid of that entire site distance, both north and south. I think the applicant also needs some agreement from the village board that they are willing to accept this improvement, and then work with them to get it done with you. So that's my only add-on.
Well, that's for the future too. That's not even our purview. Anything else?
Well, listen, if the board seems to be satisfied, listen, we've committed to this. So if the board seems to be
If the board
relative.
approves it, then we'll need it.
I'd like to carry this over to the next meeting.
I don't see no reason for it.
I'd like to get a little more information.
Because, first of all, if it gets approved, then Mr. Clark's not even involved in it. So why
Well,
go
we're not
that
going to keep it
direction?
open for them to negotiate. That's not the reason we would keep
But what
this
if
open.
we say yes? Then
What is your
Mr. Clark's not
rationale? What do you
involved.
need information on, Joe?
I'd like to get some of the site things that Mr. Collins was just speaking about. I'd like to know whether this is another, the other possibility that they're discussing just tonight actually has a chance of coming to fruition. I think it would behoove us to go one more, but I'm just one voice.
Listen, we have to make a decision on whether or not we're gonna allow them to do the winery without having a direct road to 32. And I don't think all this stuff's gonna make a difference. It's not gonna change the fact that he's 450 feet short of Route 32.
Well, just from Quaker Road, he's longer from Evans.
So that's what we have to decide on.
Do we want to make a motion and see how it goes?
That's what we have to decide on.
You want to make?
This could go on forever.
But that's the applicant's choice. Listen, I have a feeling that
to
this
close it.
is probably very problematic in terms of ownership, in terms of, I'm not.
It looked
I
good to
think
me
it's-
from the beginning.
Pardon?
It looked good to me from the
Well,
beginning.
you know, it's not like we
It was
haven't-
the first time I've
it's not-
actually
we
seen
haven't talked-
that
I
piece of
mean,
property.
This came up with us.
Right.
And it just didn't seem like it was going to be feasible. I'm not sure that that actually connects us directly onto 32. It really doesn't. We're crossing Quaker, so how are we directly on?
Would you prefer
Well, I think.
to discuss
I
this
think-
further, or, I mean, I don't know what else there is to discuss at this point, but, or would you prefer that we, close the public
I
hearing
think we've
and?
made a reasonable proposal with this.
Okay.
I think the other one is
Well,
way.
we still have to
It's very
do-
abstract. It doesn't mean I can't go talk to this gentleman
Right,
some other
right. Well, that
time.
would be between
It's-
the
right.
two of them. We still have to do secra, the uncoordinated review, so even if we close the public hearing, until we do the secra, we won't be able to make a decision.
Okay. So do you have, are you going to consider closing now?
Well, do I have a
Or-
motion to
I
close
know
the
Joe
public
wants-
hearing?
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second it. Okay, Joe, how do you vote?
No.
Gary?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Aye. So the public hearing is closed. We will do secra. We'll probably do it at the end of the meeting. You're welcome to stay.
Are you?
I don't know if we'll finish the secra, but
Can I address the board just in terms of a point of law regarding the application? The reason that we submitted the study of the school and of the recreation area.
can we consider his comments now since the public hearing is closed?
This isn't evidence. I'm just
Okay.
commenting on the
All right,
application.
no, I just
Yeah.
wanted to, I don't want any
Sure.
legal issues.
Yeah, I'm not submitting any
Okay.
new evidence or anything. The law basically provides that in cases where a proposed use will have the same or a lesser impact than a permitted use where a variance is not needed, courts have consistently held that the applicant's entitled to the variance. So, and I can get that to Rob, but there's a whole plethora of cases where a proposed use has been submitted where a variance is needed. It's been compared against permitted uses in the zone, and where you find that the permitted uses in the zone will generate more that without needing a variance than what you're requesting with a variance, consistently upheld that you're entitled to the variance. So if you're not going to decide tonight, I'll be happy to get this to
Well, I'm
Mr.
not sure
Dickover.
how the secret is going to go when we
Right,
do this,
okay.
so.
So just in case I don't want to stay, well, I'm here till the end anyway.
I was just going to say,
I
you're going
know.
to be here.
So are you anticipating only completing seeker and not deliberating on the application? Pardon?
Depends how late it gets.
Oh, okay, so I have to go quick on the other one, or you want me to? Okay.
Jay, I got just one question.
Sure.
This was kicking around the back of my mind before, but the
Joe,
fact that those are permitted uses, the school and the nursery, doesn't mean that you would get a permit for them. I mean, just the sheer traffic that they generate, no matter which way it came out, would, you know, I understand variance versus not variance and
Yeah.
so forth, don't get me wrong here, but it's, I mean, the difference in traffic is astronomical. It's almost like an apples and oranges
Correct.
comparison.
Correct.
You didn't really come up with something that was similar in the traffic that
Well,
was generated.
listen, Mike came, when I asked Mike to do this, he came back to me and said, I'll analyze a school with 500 students. I said, don't analyze a school with 500 students.
It's not for, this
Cut
is
it
not
in
a,
half.
this is a question.
So we cut it in half, and that seemed to be something that reasonably could be developed on this property, because your bulk requirement for schools is, I think, minimum 2 acres. We have over
But
50 acres.
Joe, I'm sorry, Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, it's okay.
Since the public hearing is closed, we really can't be talking about the schools and the comparisons and whatever, because you already presented that.
That's fine.
So,
Duly noted.
sorry, Joe. We're going to do it at the end, I think. Oh, for us, well, I thought you meant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back at, what time is it? 10 of? 5 of.
Yeah, I've got a list of.
I mean, that last thing, they're reshaping up, that's not. Usually it's gonna go, that's the worst case. Going through, yeah, that's the worst, because when it goes through, that's the worst. Scott.
Like it's in a weird place. If you plan to stay for the next application, we'll be starting in about 1 minute.
1 minute warning.
No, we did this already. We did this. Oh, Osweiler.
Oh. That's an example, and I like that. I like the thought very much. I understand. Sure, you're welcome.
Oh, this is basically the same as nothing but computer paper you can store. You know?
I tried to be specific. See, I don't know. I think it's dangerous to get too specific.
Yeah, because Okay, next on the agenda is the Osweiler application. We have 4 board members. One has recused himself. This is a continuation of a public hearing for a use variance to permit the use of an existing building containing a non-conforming use to operate a taxi dispatch office. Whereas pursuant to Section 310-43.2B3, any non-conforming use, quote, shall not be changed to another non-conforming use without the approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then only to a use which, in the opinion of said board, is one of the same or of a more restrictive nature, end of quote. Said property is located in the quarter-acre zoning district at 19 Adams Street in Highland Mills and is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 220, Block 2, Lot 15.1. And I see the applicant is present. You were here, Mr. Romine?
Romine, yes. Yes.
Did I say that right?
Romine.
Romine, okay. So I want to clarify one thing. This is not a use variance, it's a change from one non-conforming use to another of the same or more restrictive non-conforming use. It's not a use variance per se, okay? So according to the paperwork that you provided to us since the last meeting, You said that Osweiler Brothers provided sales and service to the construction industry, correct?
Correct,
Mostly asphalt contractors.
correct.
You had a test truck for truck sales to help customers get certified and whatever, and so you brought that out, left in the morning, came back at night.
Yep,
Was it just one truck?
yeah,
Okay. Your hours were approximately 5 a.m. when the truck left?
Well, yeah,
6, I mean, that's when the truck
That's
left,
when-
but that's not when the employees came.
Right.
And the proposal that we received also says it's a base call center for an existing cab company, correct? It says no garage use, no fleet of vehicles, says that in the documentation that you gave.
he provided.
Since the last meeting, we received a letter from Mr. Scott Dosher, who lives on Park Avenue. He's concerned about the amount of parking and vehicles coming and going, et cetera. That letter will be entered into the record. I'm not going to read the entire letter because it's quite a lengthy letter. In addition to his letter, we also have, and I might have read it into the record last month, but again, Bernice Feast on Park Avenue also wrote a letter concerned about the same basic issues, you know, the traffic and safety of the children. And Robert Frasco also on Park Avenue, yes, same thing. All the concerns seem to be about the number of vehicles and coming and going and parking and et cetera, et cetera.
Can I make
So-
a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
In regards to the letter from Mr. Dosher, there was a paragraph dedicated to the Parks Department from the town purchasing the property. Just for the record, that was considered, they actually approved that in November, their first meeting in November, and they withdrew the contract the 2nd, actually by the 6th of November. So that was a possibility at that time, but it was pulled. The town wasn't interested.
I've spoken with the town.
Okay.
I'll wait my turn, but I just want to make sure that
So that's not public knowledge, though, generally public
It
knowledge.
is now.
It is now.
I'll wait my turn.
Very good, thank you.
All righty. We also asked you for some documentation. I have some questions on that. The first question I have is you have a paper here that says sales by customer summary, and it has several companies listed and several dollar amounts listed.
Yeah,
Could you tell me what this is exactly?
That, they wanted, someone suggested that I still wasn't in business, and that shows that I am still in business.
Do you have, I mean, you know, it's you saying you're in business, which is basically what you told us last month,
Right.
but do you have something that shows, you know, some invoice or
Well,
some
those
kind
are
of...
all invoices, they were invoiced to the customers. But I
But-
can send you other invoices, yeah, regular, actual invoices.
Yeah, the copies of the invoices
I
would
can do that,
definitely,
that's not a big
you
deal.
know.
It's just easier to print a summary report than each individual invoice.
Right, but when we look at this,